Welcome. This is James Corbett of the Corbett Report with your EyeOpener report for BoilingFrogsPost.com. The proponents of psychological warfare tactics by modern-day governments argue that fears about government propaganda are misplaced, as there are already laws in place to prevent the US government from propagandizing to its own citizens. Indeed, legislation prohibiting government-sponsored domestic propaganda has been in place for nearly 1 century. That legislation, however, is outdated, unenforceable, and routinely breached by the very government agencies that it is supposed to restrain. And as weak and effective as this legislation already is, it is in danger of being even further diluted by a proposed amendment to the 2013 edition of the National Defense Authorization Act.
All right, we've spoken a lot about the National Defense Authorization Bill for 2013 that's working its way through Congress. The version that passed the House last week included $8 billion more than required, thanks to Republicans, as well as provisions banning same-sex marriage ceremonies on military installations and continuing the ban on transfers of Gitmo detainees to U.S. soil. Now, the White House even issued a veto threat for these reasons. But the House passed it anyway. There's also been a battle over amendments attempting to either overturn or limit last year's provision, which allows for indefinite detention, including that of U.S. citizens. While all of that stuff has been publicized, there's another amendment out there that almost slipped by under the radar. Introduced by Representatives Adam Smith and Mac Thornberry, bipartisan team, the amendment aims to strike down a ban on the dissemination of propaganda by the State Department and the Broadcasting Board of Governors on domestic audiences.
The Smith-Mundt Modernization Act of 2012 seeks to update the Smith-Mundt Act of 1948, which prohibits the State Department's public diplomacy organs from disseminating propaganda intended for foreign audiences domestically. Smith, Thornberry, and other modernization proponents argue that the bill was drafted in a pre-satellite, pre-television, pre-internet era where the public feared the State Department's ability to influence domestic politics. In this day and age of instant online access to websites and videos from anywhere in the world, proponents of the bill argue, the idea of segregating information into foreign and domestic is a futile, if not meaningless, activity. In reality, though, it's unclear what effect the Smith-Mundt Act has had in limiting domestic propaganda at all. There are no clear provisions, bodies, or oversights for its enforcement, and even the State Department itself seems unclear what bureaus are supposed to abide by it. More general prohibitions on domestic propaganda also exist on the books. The 1913 Gillette Amendment, for example, now codified as USC Title V, Section 3107, clearly states, appropriated funds may not be used to pay a publicity expert unless specifically appropriated for that purpose. Moreover, every one of the annual appropriations bills passed by Congress since 1951 has included a stipulation that no part of any appropriation contained in this or any other act shall be used for publicity or propaganda purposes within the United States not heretofore authorized by the Congress. The Department of Defense has its own stipulations against domestic propaganda. Codified in USC Title 10, Section 2241, subsection A, the relevant passage reads, funds available to the Department of Defense may not be obligated or expended for publicity or propaganda purposes within the United States not otherwise specifically authorized by law. As we shall see, however, every one of these laws has been violated both in letter and in spirit by recently exposed Psyops campaigns funded by the American taxpayer and aimed directly at the US population. In theory, there are legal obstacles in place that prevent the US government from directly propagandizing to its own citizens. In reality, however, these regulations have been routinely flouted by the Defense Department and other federal agencies without any serious repercussion. Even a cursory breakdown of the actions of the last few administrations show that domestic propaganda operations have been and continue to be an integral part of modern American politics. Both the Bush administration and the Clinton administration before it made extensive use of video news reports, or VNRs, to influence public opinion on key issues. The reports, made to look like genuine news reports and then shopped around to news networks to